Hello, everyone, and welcome back to PSGL PCF5. It's great to be here. It's great to be back in the commentary box. I am, of course, joined by Mr. Sartak. I up again here in the nick of time.
Yeah, it was close. I almost thought I was going to miss all the action over at Montreal. The Wall of Champions, which talked about so much at the tail end of the last race. But clearly, I'm on time and all set for qualifying.
Yeah, so, well, great to have you on board. Great to have you on for the show. As always, it'd be lonely in the comms box without you. So, yes, Montreal, Canadian Grand Prix, Wall of Champions, and round 4 of the season 32 calendar. I mean, just before we get into things, what's your opinions on the circuit?
I've seen things go, historically well for drivers who get in the groove early on into qualifying itself. But, one fumble into that last chicane will cost a lot of drivers pretty much everything. And we saw that historically amongst these set of drivers on the previous track. So going into this one, I'd expect the same, especially coming off of a race like Zandvoort, where you saw all the chaos unravel itself. Be it in the first couple laps or be it in the first half of the race, going to the last half of the race even. So yeah, I'm expecting just as much action, probably not as much chaos as Zandvoort. Hopefully some of the drivers have learned from their previous mistakes.
So, well, let's see. But taking a look at the standings, and speaking of the drivers and their standings, so Yuki currently top spot, holding the only title in the championship so far of being a driver with every single race on a podium. So 2/3 and a second place. That's enough for 32 points in the championship, being trailed only by Noel Coleman with, say, 2 podiums to their name. Bit of a weaker finish last time out at Zandvoort, but still enough to be within that grasp. 6-point gap. And then following down the grid, you have, say, Norby, Alexander Dimas, Super Gaming, Leo Lund, Justin Memento, and Elliot Norin taking those top 10 spots. And I am very impressed, I have to say, is that there is a point spread between the races, but it's not that large. It's certainly not insurmountable. We've got 11 races in the season, and quite quickly we've seen some strong players come out swinging.
Yeah, surely enough. And some of these drivers, I mean, maybe I'm repeating myself. Maybe the season already has gone 4 rounds. But I still think there are a couple of underdogs in this grid. I think they have been caught off guard. Alpine being one of the most prominent ones to face the short end of the stick itself on across all these rounds so far. Qualifying goes his way to an extent, but the race, every time the race just doesn't quite sum up to the way you'd want to as a sim racing driver. And we saw it go the other way around on Noel Carmen's front, but he managed to finish a race. So you could arguably say that's a win in itself. But then again, you want to ensure you're more like Yuki, finishing on the podium race after race.
Well, I say you win some, you lose some, and certainly one to forget for the likes of Carmen, but there's a chance to pull it back. Remember, it's not an insurmountable gap, as we said, between the drivers and between them all in the championship. So yes, before we get in, so you heard the timer just yet, we are heading to Canada, Montreal. 14 turns, 2.7 miles, 3 DRS zones, the Wall of Champions. Fair bit of undulation up and down the track. I don't think people realize just how hilly, in a way, the track actually is. It's almost deceptive.
Yeah, surely enough, Sector 1 to Sector 2 prominently, I feel very underrated part of the track. I think everyone looks towards Sector 3 for any kind of overtaking action when it comes to Montreal. But surely enough, you've seen, historically, I remember, if I have to call out from F1 Esports, I believe David Tonitza having an incident of sorts. Of course, it was a game glitch, but it was in Sector 2 of Montreal. I hope I was right on that, Sappy.
Yeah, I believe it was Tonitza there. So we are about to jump in to qualifying here. Be sure to check out our partners, of course, GT Omega, and use code PSGL for a healthy discount at checkout. But that being said, we are heading into the race, and we are about to get things underway here at round 4. So looks like first to come out, it's going to be a Ferrari. It's going to be Dimas. 。 At this point, we're just waiting
Yep,
for everyone
much
to
better.
peel out.
Yeah, I'm surprised maybe Alfine's trying to try, try something different this time around. He knows qualifying. He gets it in the bag time and time again. Maybe perhaps this time around he gets it in the bag, but somehow, ensure he seals it. Sven Schumacher, is he out on track? Evidently, no. It's just Yuki alongside uh, Jamie or Jaime, depending on how you want to pronounce that. And couple of relative names in the form of Alexander Dimas, Elias Lima, adjusting that race to follow. A couple of the drivers who might have just come off of a race they want to forget in the likes of Zandvoort, but it's all about Montreal today.
Yeah, so all about Montreal. So make or break for a lot of these drivers' championship efforts, at least certainly in the early game. It's going to be a monumental task to push back up should they falter now. Just because there's 11 rounds doesn't mean you can take any of them lightly. Majority of them trying to get on an outlap while they can. You're still seeing drivers now peeling out. Things say the likes of the Alpines, the Williams. They were on board with Alexander Dimas now, first out on track and first to go full tilt as we start qualifying here.
Going through the first couple of corners already, it seemed like he had a bit of a fumble, but I guess when it's your first lap out in qualifying, you want to make sure the fumbles are early on rather than later on into the session itself. We did see in the last time out in qualifying overall, a lot of late runners ensuring they end up in the top 5 come the clock hitting 0. In Sector 1 lighting up yellow for a brief moment. I'd assume that's a slow-moving car, but this rather uncanny chicane, you could say, Alexander Dimas goes through in Sector 2, does catch off quite a bit of drivers.
I say it's looking good for right now. Keep in mind, it's still got 15 minutes left here in qualifying, so even if there's some mild blunders up and down the field, they've still got time to make it up, provided they don't damage the car and lose time. They are majoritively okay. So looking on board with Dimas now, going to see what the benchmark is from the Ferrari. Coming across the line, let's see what they do. Looks like it's going to be a strong one, and it's going to be a 109.782. Got to the likes of Justin about to cross the line, seeing what they can do to match it. Are they going to go higher or are they going to go lower? It's going to be lower. 110.570. A few other drivers coming through now as Momenta 109.717. That's just going to be pipping the Ferrari by 65 milliseconds.
Yeah, still laps early on coming through. I believe a couple of Tauris are on a fast lap of their own, but it doesn't seem like anyone's setting a quicker lap time in terms of sectors, at least. I don't see the track map lighting up purple either, so seems like the entire grid out on track are taking it rather slowly around Montreal. And as I say, Leo Lund sets third fastest, Super Gaming fourth fastest, and they are lurking into the 1 minute 9 second ranges. And you can see Yuki with a quick second fastest lap time early into this qualifying session. A bunch of them, of course, invalidating their lap times, as you'd evidently see around Montreal. And yeah, I don't think we've seen the best yet out on track.
Well, we're on board now with Noel Carlman, and we are looking to see what they can do. They invalidated their first attempt, so they opted to save their resources early on, go for a full push with this run. It's looking very promising so far from, in fact, both of the McLarens. Leo Lund P4 right now, 109.927. Looks to be sort of coming up to that threshold. War Champions time for the McLaren. Just about looks like he dodges it, almost by millimeters. He scrapes by, and it's going to be the fastest lap of the session so far. It's a 109.654.
In the top 5, both McLarens early into this qualifying session, and that's what you want to, that's how you want to qualify, considering you're fighting for that constructors title consistently, weekend on weekend. In this case, the magnificent Thursday at the F5 tier. Regardless, Noel Carlman sets the benchmark so far into the qualifying session, and we've still got over 8 drivers yet to set a lap time around Montreal. Quickest lap time of your own, Sappy? Have you ever gotten behind the wheel and enjoyed yourself around Montreal?
I say too long ago to count. I can't remember off the top of my head, but one thing's for sure, I remember really enjoying this track basically any time that I went on it. It's especially that final sort of section, especially with the World Champions, it's such a commitment. And you really just have to put 100% of your faith in the car, and you've just got to be brave and stick it out. There's really no substitute for bravery and commitment there. And of course, if you get it wrong, as we've seen, you get it very wrong.
Yeah, sure enough. And seems like only a handful of drivers out on track right now. And so far, and I don't want to make this somewhat of a commentator's curse, but no one's really clipped the wall of champions. And hopefully we don't see any drivers clip the wall of champions in the qualifying session. We've got just under 12 minutes left. I believe Danico is a prominent driver on the Red Bull who was on his in-lap evidently, so as he heads back in. So Elias Lima clearly not hanging dry out on track, will be hanging out dry out on track in come the race. And we've got the Haas pair as well here, so I'm looking forward for the race considering we've got a completely packed grid.
It's looking good on the grid front. So all 20 positions taken up, and top racers filling those spaces. That's the important thing. 5 drivers yet to set time. We're about to see what comes of one of them. Norby, 110.039 is enough for P8. Benzi Fazekas is going to be coming through as well. Went for invalidation, though. Is going to be going on a run this time round. Elfin has just started a run in the Alfa Romeo. We're going to see what they can bring to the table as the Alfa Romeos have sort of been silent chargers in this whole thing, as though they may not have been at the forefront, at the precipice, like we've been talking about the AlphaTauris and the McLarens, but they've certainly been going and putting in that strong performance time in, time out, at least from what I can tell.
Yeah, it's been a game of they getting so close yet so far, and as I say that, I see a Alfa Romeo spun around in Sector 2 right after the chicane. And that's not the kind of situations you want to get yourself in. But back to what we were talking about, Alfa Romeo, Super Gaming and Alpine, it seems like the talent's there and clearly enough it shows on and off. But keeping it consistent, ensuring finishing in the top 5, much like the McLaren pair, we've not seen that consecutively, at least in the first 4 rounds of this season.
Yeah, so plenty of time to prove that consistency thus far. Elfin, I hope they didn't get rear wing damage, because that's a lot more of a problem to deal with than something like the front wing. Either way, Fazekas right now, coming across the final corner, invalidates this run as well, though, unfortunately, is not going to be putting their name to the boards. That leaves 4 drivers, Blurk, Fazekas, Elfin, and Joris, about to set a time. Is that Haas that we just mentioned? Do you think we're going to see them at the top of the timesheets?
Just might. I'd expect that a field result from anyone like Fazer, because it did seem he was getting into his groove of sorts with all the chaos back in Zandvoort, but fortunately it didn't go his way. One person getting into their groove is definitely Yuki, sets the fastest lap time, trumps Kalman with a 1:19.462.
Yes, there you go. So Joris going to come in P15, 110.629, and it's going to slot themselves in P15. I know that they're not too happy with that one. They seem a little disgruntled, so I would expect them to be going for another go and seeing if they can place higher. Right away, on board with Dimas once again. Kintek's retiring out of the session in P17. Doesn't look like they're going to get another go there, which is unfortunate. And Dimas are disappearing as well. What's going on?
Oh, that's unfortunate. I was riding on board McBlurk, but back to Kintex. I mean, what's happened to Kintex after the Spanish GP, or the Spain race, essentially? It did seem like he had something in him, but definitely McBlurk just wiped himself out on the Wall of Champions, has had its first crash. The driver to have a crash into the Wall of Champions today. It's McBlurk. He is on the main straight, no front wing, front left has gone as well, and that is your qualifying session.
And you can just see there,
the greatest of outcomes.
You can just see there as Jamie Mells comes in for P7, 109.941. The first victim has been claimed. And it's literally like we were saying earlier, it's a test of commitment. You get it wrong, boy, do you get it wrong. That's McBlurk locked out in P18. It can only go downward from here.
All right. And always we go. Then Yuki's time still as solid as ever. Keeps him ahead of Noel Carmen. Momenta in the top three. I don't think we've seen Momenta start in the top three, despite having been stronger qualifying on and off so far in the 4 rounds we've seen. What's to say Montreal is his track for the taking. 7 minutes left of this short qualifying, and we've had another retirement in the form of Masio. And hopefully it's not a crash out on track, but it just might sector 2 lights up yellow.
So we'll have to see. I'm on board right now with Danico, who is going for a run themselves. You can see over 200 miles an hour almost on that final straight, heading into the Wall of Champions. Manages to nail the final section, but just cuts a bit too much. It's going to be an invalidation, and that is going to be a lap not making its way into the books, despite what seemed like a heroic drive up to that point.
Sappy, I'm not sure if the stream can hear it, but I can. A bit of echo on your end, but I'm sure you'll get that fixed real quick. Back to Leo Lund. Of course, we have seen him, perform in qualifying almost on par to his teammate, right? Maybe they're getting closer and closer to our infamous McLaren front row lockout at one of these races, or perhaps even a 1-2 finish. It seems like every race they get closer to that kind of result. And same goes with the Ferrari drivers in the form of Alexander Dimas and Norby, significantly in qualifying in comparison to the race, because somehow in the race things don't go their way, but qualifying, they managed to get into the top 10 at the very least, both of them.
I think we're seeing a little bit of a parallel between themselves and their real life counterparts. Say Ferrari being brilliant quali merchants, and for whatever reason, whether it's their own fault or something else going on, you usually see the race tend to fall apart. Though that being said, overall has been a better showing than the on-track, say the real life Scuderia, and overall you say it's an upward turn with Ferraris. We'd certainly love to see it. We'd certainly love to see a lot of great drivers on this grid get the results they deserve. Right now, looking on board, Aelfin, P3 right now in the standings, sort of silently been pushing and making quite a statement.
Yeah, clearly he's getting in a groove of qualifying. 5 minutes left to the qualifying session, and if anyone wants to buck up and set a significant lap time, it might just be Aljat, teammate of Momenta's, down in 17th fastest. That's not a stellar lap time, I'd imagine. And hopefully he can get closer to his teammate. Fazekas just sets a lap time that ensures he gets in the top 10. 7th fastest so far. But yeah, I think Justin, that racer, we haven't seen the best lap time out of him just yet. And same goes with the Haas pair down in 16th and 17th.
Yeah, saying those Haas's in particular really need to sort of pick up their heels, get into gear. They've only got 4 minutes left. We know that they can pull a much better performance than they have here in Montreal. Let's say on board with Super Game right now, seeing what they can bring to the table. And everyone, for the most part, heading into the pits, getting some fresh rubbers on so that they can make a last-minute dash for a final qualifying run.
Yeah, you can already see the form of a couple of drivers coming out onto the track. I see just one driver coming onto the track, but the rest still in the pits waiting for that right time, I presume. No comment. A significant competitor heads back into the pits, however. And the more I look at it, the more I wonder, will we have a left field result in this qualifying session? Will Yuki take the first pole of his first pole this season? Trump the Noah Carmans and the Alpines and take Sven Schumacher's place, who we don't see out on track today. Can the Ferrari stay in the top 5? They're currently in the top 6. That would be quite the fancy outcome for them, hoping for an even better outcome in the race. But we got 3 minutes left short qualifying and a bunch of yellows flying off out on track.
Yes, they may have been one of them for Jamie Mells. 109.9 so far, looked to be on a good run, but just overcooked it in the final hairpin and just sort of went way too far off the apex. Ended up putting it in the wall a little bit, which is unfortunate for them. But yeah, everyone at this point heading into the pits.
I wonder if the top 8 are more confident than ever that their lap times will stand. And as I say that, we got our first one out of the top 8 coming out on track. Momenta just rolled out on track. I was starting to wonder if maybe Leonard or Justin, that racer, could trump the top 8 if they stayed into the pits, considering there's just about 2.5 minutes left to qualifying to end. But it seems like they will be rolling out one by one, but will they have time to set a fast lap?
Well, it's only 8 drivers right now that haven't got a 109 to their name, and even then, the top 10 is only split by just under half a second. So they really are running tight to the margins here. Seeing a few sort of packs, a few sort of groups running together. I think closest gap in terms of timesheets right now is between Norby and Fazekas. It is, in fact, I believe 19 milliseconds according to my commentator maths. But one thing's for sure, you've got the likes of Danico looking to make a challenge on that, seeing if they can strike and punch a little bit above where they currently are sitting now. It's looking very quick in the Red Bull, coming down the penultimate straight, seeing what kind of speeds they can hit. It's looking like a very strong run. It all comes down to this. Wall of Champions. Did they overcook it? Nope, they've got it just fine. It's across the start-finish line. What time is it going to be? Is it going to be enough? Yes, it is. It's 109.707. P4 for the Red Bull.
A break is probably all he needed. He comes back after a race away, and he looks stellar as ever, even more stronger than his own teammate Justin, that racer, for today. But yeah, Yuki's lap time still a solid one, keeps him at provisional pole, but he's got his competitors coming out. No Carmen has invalidated. No, he just starts a fast lap, and Alfine's getting prepped for his as he comes along the back straight.
I guess you know Yuki's scared there. It's only 60 milliseconds separating the AlphaTauri and the McLaren. Noel Carman is practically biting his heels, not giving him any inches to breathe. And he's got to be ready for that. He's got to give it one last shot just to see if they can make sure that McLaren isn't going to be a threat. Either way, right now, Noel Carman heading down the track, heading it through the second sector. Got some traffic up ahead. How are they going to respond? Hopefully, we see the track peeling out of the way. Looking like, yes, it is being observed. Great to see that sportsmanship. So good following of the rules there. Respect being shown. Either way, Noel Carman looks to be a purple sector 2 there. All comes down to this final sector. Can they hold it all together? They're absolutely on a blistering place right now. The flag falls now or never for the Papaya car. Throws it into the Wall of Champions. Gives it their all. Looks like a tiny, tiny gap between the two cars, but it's just going to be enough. 458, 109.458. That's 4 milliseconds ahead of Yuki here in qualifying. Can they attack it?
Oh.
No, it's an invalidation. Noel Coleman has provisional pole.
Yeah, and last one, the one competitor that can take it away from him is Alfine, who's on the back straight now. Dimas out of nowhere.
Absolutely out of nowhere. 0.365. The Ferrari takes it a step further. It's a 10th. Chopped off. It's 0.365.
Looks like they got their way, at least on one car's front, because Alexander Dimas seems like he's set to start on pole position as long as, yep, Leo has crossed the line, so that should ensure pole position for Alexander Dimas.
Stay off yet. Coming across the line. It's going to be an improvement. P15 for the Aston Martin, but there you go. That is just Dimas coming out of nowhere there. We thought the provisional pole was the McLaren, but no. Ferrari just said, you know what? I'm going to turn the wick up just a little bit. I'll keep you in the commentary box on your toes.
Yeah, another driver that clearly turned it up at the last moments of qualifying is definitely Fazekas. He bumped himself up in a fourth fastest, so he'll be starting on the second row. Yuki's up there, Carmen's up there, so probably Alfine makes it up into the top 5 yet again. Hopefully, going into the race, he can stay in the top 5. That's the tricky part for Alfine, as he's seen. It almost did seem like a significant competitor would be Danico, but he finds himself starting 7th for the race itself. Alexander Dimas will start. Alexander Dimas' teammate will start down in 8th. So maybe coming to strategy, the team might just play it a certain way. Leoland, of course, will start 9th, while Jamie ends up being the last driver in the top 10.
There you go. So looking at the board now, Alexander Dimas leads, takes pole position with a 109.365, blistering lap from the Scuderia, only followed by Noel Carman in 109.458, and Yuki just 4 milliseconds behind in the AlphaTauri. So there is your standings on screen, and we'll be back with you after a word from our sponsor. Welcome back, everyone. So, after an absolutely electrifying qualifying session, we are looking forward to the race. It's looking a little bit overcast, I have to say. So, it may play a little bit of havoc in terms of the weather. However, some drivers are going to be starting in very, very strong positions. The likes of Demas, Coleman, all coming up at the top. Yuki as well, rounding off that podium for the qualifying session. But either way, looks like we are geared and ready to go for PSGL round 4, PCF 5. It's 5 red lights. The track is hot. And it's time to go racing.
And away they go, going into turn 1. You can see Dimas positioning his car perfectly to ensure no comment. Does he have it in him? Yes, he does. Stays wheel to wheel alongside Dimas. Yuki watches on carefully, but it seems like the Ferrari is the one with all the power at start here in Montreal. Pulls away a nice gap early on, a 3/10 gap, leaving Coleman to deal with Yuki at the back. Fazeka's Momenta hold positions. Alpine as well having a tussle there with the other Ferrari.
I'm going to say Gear got down the field. Looks like a battle of the Alfa Romeo and the Ferrari right now. Alpine consistently fighting and trying to put that pressure down. It's not quite gone their way. They're P7 right now. Joris all the way down to P20. Dashki and Alyat also fighting a bit further down. But keeping it clean so far. So everyone's still hungry for those positions.
Yeah, Yuki's... you don't want to make those fumbles early into the race itself while you've got someone hot on your tail just 3/10 away. But somehow Norby has gotten that benefit at race start. So it's not just one Ferrari looking good out on track, it's both. And if Norby can keep that pace going, he'll be up and up in front. Yuki sends himself into a spin and tumbles down the order as the cars go right past him on the main straight.
Yeah, as you see, it's just all marooned down at the bottom. It's going to leave the likes of Dimas and Coleman completely in free running. They're already 8/10 ahead of Fazekas in P3. It's a yellow briefly coming out for the first sector as Yuki tries to recover. And that is a brutal start to the race there.
Yeah, and we had another car having an incident with Elias Lima, who tumbled down the order after the midfield getting as chaotic as you'd imagine. And up in front, the race leader is pulling away quite the gap. Over half a second's gap already. Alexander Dimas on Noel Carmen, but I'm sure he's spending a lot of that ERS early into this race. You'd want to keep that going into the next 33 laps of Montreal. Fazekas finds himself running in the podium positions, I'd presume, for the first time ever in PSGL.
It's going to be running at the top end, and the sharp end of the field requires that unique sense of bravery you can't really find anywhere else. Looking down the lower end, though, Blurk and Nugget looks to be fighting. It's a drag race between the two, and you're going to see who comes out the top. Looks like McBlurk managed to get a little bit of an edge on that Aston Martin. It's just about having what it takes to put their car up in P15. It's Alexander Dimas, so it's 113.078. DRS has now been enabled from race control. And it's still looking like that no one's really out of range, so the DRS train might start to form very soon.
Yeah, sure enough, especially in the midfield, you can see Danico keeping it within 3/10 of Alpine, who seems to have lost some kind of pace, considering he's got a second's gap, over a second's gap to Norby, or maybe just Norby. It has gotten into his groove around Montreal, and he's flying, but clearly DRS activated for Danico. I'd expect to move on the back straight. He's got an AlphaTauri hot on his tail as well, and a McLaren carefully watching.
So looking on board with, they were going to see what they can try and do, because they're a bit limited on their options. It's not like they've got a tyre advantage. Everyone's running the hard tyres. Bar one driver, I think. Everyone is on the white walls and look to be going for a hard to medium strategy. The question is if they're going to double stack and if that's going to play havoc later into the race. Though that said, looks like there's contact between Dimas and Coleman briefly there. Didn't really get the opportunity to catch that, unfortunately, but whatever happened, Dimas is missing an end plate.
Yeah, that curb threw him off a bit around the chicane, and no Carmen capitalized on that. He's missing an end plate. Dimas not playing into his favor early into this race after spectacular start. That Mercedes is breathing down Dimas's gearbox, and soon enough he will make that pass. Fazekas down the inside, sends it, stays wheel to wheel, and is sent into a spin. Aston Martin taken with him and sends another car onto the grass right behind him. And just like that, Fazekas finds himself beyond the top 10 positions.
Yes, Vegas is losing it almost just as quickly. A little bit of carbon sprinkled on track. Hopefully the marshals can get that picked up quick. But there's another driver having a bit of a casualty moment. And looks like Fazekas is really struggling there. You see him completely overshoot the chicane. I think the grip has really been lost there.
Oh, that was arguably foul play, but regardless, Ailfin, he is getting the short end of the stick. He attempted to dive down the inside of the McLaren right up, and seems like a three-way battle. Around the outside comes Justin, that racer on Leo, blocks him real quick and into the chicane. Who will be the lead car as two cars head into the pits? No one meets the wall of champions, and everything stays the same.
Yeah, as Dimas and Momenta heading into the pits. Obviously, they got damaged. They can't really continue to run the race in that condition. So regardless of where it spits them out, anything's better than the state of their cars right now. They need to get those wings fixed. They need to get back on track fast.
Surely enough, and with the Alfa Romeos meanwhile having to make a decision, I'd assume, considering Super Gaming does seem like he's got the pace to keep on picking off driver after driver. He's made up 3 positions so far. He's got his teammate, and as I say that, the rear kicks out, and he's almost sent it to a spin. That'll cost him a position, maybe 2, or possibly not. But yeah, right now Super Gaming is back where he started almost. But up ahead now, no, Ailfin once again. No front wing, and in sector 2, right out sector 2, has crashed, and that should bring out a full course yellow.
Yeah, that is a full course safety car, so everyone stay slow and right down. Bit of a saving grace for the likes of Dimas, Momenta, Yuki, and Yashki. They're 7-8 seconds behind a piece. They can't afford to be that far behind, so really, something like a safety car is a great boon for them. Now, the other thing is that everyone's on the hard tire, so to have a safety car this early is super inconvenient. They haven't got the wear into the tires for a safety car pit stop to be worth it. That track position sacrifice would just be too much. So no one can really capitalize on it, short for maybe some of the mid runners who don't have as much track position to lose.
Yeah, Norby, despite making the moves that he made and climbing up the order, decided to pit, and he's coming out on a fresh set of mediums. Is, the expectation reign perhaps into the second half of this race? Who knows? But right now, we saw about 5 cars pit, and we'll find out whether that was the strategy call to make. But right now, Noah Carmen leads this race ahead of Danico and Jamie, right ahead of Leo Lanzo. 2 McLarens in the top 5, stays the same.
Here's the look in, so very same at the moment, as a few people dropping out of the section owing to connection issues. But yeah, even with the rain potentially coming out, it's still not worth it at this point, because it is just that, overcast. It's not raining yet. It's too early to make a gamble, and even then you have a brief window of time when you are in that sort of mid period where the slicks still are viable, they still have grip, but you will eventually hit that tipping point of having to go to a wetter tyre, and that's something that drivers can only judge from experience. So if that is what comes to pass, I'm very curious to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how the likes of Aljar, McBlurk, Joris, and Elias Lima Kintex, a couple of these drivers started at the back of the pack, and we've seen them compete at the back of the packs, race on race in the first 4 rounds of this season so far. They find themselves with an opportunity in their hands, arguably, with the safety car in play, and on the same set of tires the front runners are on. So yeah, I think a lot of unexpected outcomes are set on the horizon. But on lap number 7, Noah Carmen leads this race, a familiar man leading a race once again, with Danico up ahead, who find himself in an opportunistic position after a race away from PSGL. Jamie, I assume he's replaced Fazekas in terms of being for the first time ever running in the top 3 in a race. And yeah, just in that race, he'll find himself in the top 5 too. Hopefully he can ensure that translates into a good result. But not even 10 laps has passed by in this race, so anything can happen.
Or say the McLarens and Red Bulls looking very strong at this point in time. AlphaTauri's doing okay, but on one hand you have Jamie Mills, and on the other you have a Yuki all the way down in P19. So hopefully the AlphaTauri can sort of pick it up. Hopefully they can use this safety car period to great advantage. Though as it stands, we're waiting for racing to get back underway. Danico looking opportunistic, as you said, and looking to see just what they can seize from the moment. Noel Carmen controls the pace, heading down the penultimate straight, about to get back up to race speed, and there you go, that's Carmen, full 4 to the floor, and it's time to go racing again. Lap 7 here. Oh, Danico losing the rear a little bit. That's a crucial mistake, especially on the race set-off. That could leave them vulnerable to the AlphaTauri just behind. Luckily, they netted themselves a bit of a gap. They have a bit of breathing room to absorb that mistake, but they can't let that confidence slip.
Yeah, you'd think the AlphaTauri would capitalize on that fumble, but it almost seemed like the McLaren was somehow closing in on the AlphaTauri. But it seems like Jamie's making best use of the ERS down in the midfield. Joris stumbling down the order. I wonder if it's an incident going his way, but right now all seems calm up in front. And the midfield is where we need to keep an eye on, because Norby's coming charging with a 2/10 gap to Kintex and better tires.
So using those tires to great effect there, just really gunning it out of the corner and having that extra grip at your disposal. It's not just a case of lateral grip through the corner, it's coming out of the corner, having the trust to put the power down. You can have so much more push with the softer tires that it really is just a matter of when, not if you get overtaken.
And Norby's clearly showing it. He's made the pass on Kintex as well. Next up, the Haas might just get picked off by another Haas, and indeed did, as well as Dales makes the move up in a P12. And yeah, the charge is on up in front. It's Super Gaming looking mighty fine in the top 7. But yeah, on lap number 9, everything seems calm in the top 3.
Yeah, so Super Gaming is trying to see what they can do again, and Justin is also putting a bit of pressure on. You say the AlphaTauri didn't really capitalize on Danico's mistake earlier, but you were also right about Leo Lund in the McLaren being just as much of a threat. And really, you've got to make those compromises when you're on track. If you go all in on an attack and it doesn't work out, you haven't just lost the attack, you've lost the defense position as well. So you probably didn't want to go to 4th, 5th, so opted to play a little bit safer, especially on the restart. It's a bit too much of a gamble to take.
Yeah, on the restart, a gamble you say. Norby on the mediums has picked off 3 positions in a matter of a lap. He's up in a P9. He's on a charge that can level with Noel Carmen on the hards back in, I'd assume, Spain itself. But right now he's running P9 and he's getting closer and closer to picking off his next victim, who's McBlurk come the chicane.
Yeah, Super Gaming's also teeing up a potential move right on the tail of that Red Bull, almost losing the rear. Saw a little bit of a shimmy there from the Alfa Romeo, but just about keeping it on lock. DRS now back in play. Everyone's bunched up once again, so it's going to be another DRS case. McBlurk might be the big separator in that. If they fall behind, the DRS train breaks, and then we'll have 1 through 7, and then 8 through 19.
Contact between the AlphaTauri and the wall in Sector 2, and clearly Jamie doing Leo's work in holding up the grid for Noel Carmen up in front, who's got just Danico to worry about, and Leo's desperately trying to make the pass on the AlphaTauri sooner or later, because he's got about, I don't know, all the way down, pretty much the whole entire pack breathing down his neck in some sense, all within a second of each other.
I'm looking at the AlphaTauri. Doesn't look like they have any visible damage, so could it be something to maybe the side pods or the underfloor? Because if so, that's a big problem.
Yeah, and back to Norby in the midfield, makes the pass on the Alpine on the back, straight around the outside. Nice clean pass as you'd expect, and up in front, Leo Lund fighting it around with Jamie. The AlphaTauri and McLaren finally come level, or perhaps not, as he heads into the pits. My apologies there, but it seems like it's two McLarens and 2 Red Bulls round up the top 4 so far on lap number 11.
Yeah, so it's looking very colourful. Orange and blue lit at the top, as Leo Lund now has a pretty big task ahead of them. 2.8 seconds up the road is Danico and their teammate trying to fight to keep the lead. But 6 tenths behind them is Justin, and you know how powerful Justin can be in a race situation. Jashki, though, looking like they span coming through the chicane, and that is the Alpine down into P16 as Yuki is marooned out on track. Looks to hit a wall. That is another safety car.
Yeah, it almost seemed like a three-car incident between an AlphaTauri, a Mercedes was in the mix as well. I'd imagine that is Masio as well as Yuki, who unfortunately retires from the race. So Alpine and Yuki, two drivers who qualified in the top 5 today, finds themselves retiring early into the race itself. Noah Kamen leads with full course yellow.
There we go. That is going to be the cue for our race leader, in fact, to head into the pits. So curious decision being made there. I have to wonder what the tyre wear rate is like on this track for switching off the hard tyre so quickly. And look, that's going to be almost a double stack for pretty much all of the teams out there as they're rushing to get off the hard compounds.
Yeah, somehow Danica makes the decision to stay out. Norby, as well as Alexander Dimas, by the looks of it, decide to stay out as well. So, yeah, Noah Kamen comes in P6 so far, right ahead of Leonard. And Super Gaming, Leo, Noah Kamen's teammate, not too far behind.
Well, it's really, if they can get onto the softer compound earlier, then they absolutely will. Clearly, the drivers have the confidence in the tyres to where they can switch to the mediums at this point. So if they can get on the mediums, because for all it's worth, despite the reduced life, the pace difference, especially between medium and hard, is so strong, it's so massive, that you basically have to. And even if it means a two-stopper maybe later in the race, that time advantage under the safety car might just be too much to pass up. At this stage in the race, with that much wear on the hards, it's a judgment call to be made for the most of the drivers.
Yeah, we haven't even reached the halfway mark of the race itself. And if anyone needs to ensure they had their pace in check come the safety car restart, it's Norby. He was on a charge. He now finds himself racing for the possible race lead itself on 6-lap-old mediums with his teammate real close behind. So he'd want to capitalize on that and keep a watch on how Noah Kamen's doing on a fresh set of medium rubber.
Pazeka's heading into the pits on the second safety car lap, so dropping down there. But yeah, everyone bar the top runners have opted to stay out. And this is what we were saying earlier when the first safety car came out about track position. For someone like Danico, if they can stretch these tyres out, that track position in terms of the wider team game is going to be so powerful. Especially if they're looking to back up the likes of Justin, then having that commanding position on older rubber, holding your opponents up, you can really do some damage to your adversary's pit strategy.
Yeah, surely enough, but he's somewhat of a sitting duck early into this race. He's got his teammate Fab down in P13 as well, so he just has to ensure he can hold up Norby as well as Days to some extent to ensure, you know, the deck kicks in for them and he can just stay out, ensuring a perfect pit stop in sights come the next 10 laps or so. But safety car in this lap, folks. Danica will be leading the pace and will be maintaining speed right before the race restart itself. It's Danica ahead of Norby, Dazed, Alexander Dimas and Joris, with Noah Kamen, our race leader, until the very last lap. Lap number 12, so all eyes on Danica right at that restart, and two medium runners ready to pick that race lead away from him.
Well, so you've got drivers effectively on two different races. You've got people who hit under the safety car and people who didn't. But that doesn't matter now because we're on ball with Norby, seeing how Danico handles the race start as both Norby and Danny go and rub the rear almost against the wall of champions, managing to keep it on the straight and narrow. However, coming off the safety car restart, it's a good getaway from the Red Bull despite the little wiggle because their chaser did the exact same thing. So as you look down the field, looks like Super Gaming is also on a charge as they go past the Alpine of Jashki. That's P7.
A flurry of penalties across the pack, but Noah Common waiting patiently for a fumble from Joris perhaps, or just for the right moment. He's gonna peek down the inside. He gets the Haas. Will he attempt to pick off the Ferrari as well ahead of the corner? No, he stays back. He will wait for another opportunistic moment as Alexander Dimas is next one in queue for the picking for the McLaren driver in P5. Up ahead, down the inside goes Noel Common. No contact as you'd imagine from the driver who was consistently in the top 5 through races so far in the season. Next up, the next Haas.
I know it looks like a tiny tap on the end plate in the rear there, but still, the space was left. It was a great move there from Coleman, using that grip to great effect and say coming through final section into the wall of champions. And see up ahead also, Rhombus is ripe for the taking. Gonna throw a dummy rather than committing to the move, maybe recognizing it's a little bit dangerous. They don't have that same compound advantage as they did to the Ferrari, but they do have laps that are, or tyres that are many laps younger. Although that's saying that, it looks like the Haas is round. That is Rhombus spinning and being down in P17.
Yeah, there's Rhombus. He tried to compete. He tried to fight with Noah Common, tried to hold his position from the McLaren, but sadly didn't go his way. There was a brief moment of contact, I'd imagine, but it's possible he spun on his own as well. But right now, Noah Common is lighting up the track. Next up is Norby, who is in Noah Common's position and picking off drivers one by one. Now the hunter becomes the hunted at Montreal.
And I don't know what to say before the stewards come out on this one, but in terms of that incident with Rhombus and Coleman, I don't necessarily think it was contact. I just think that there was too much pressure on the Haas and there was really no real space to move. I mean, gunning it a bit too much on the throttle. It looked like a throttle spin rather than a contact one. It was too smooth, at least from our perspective in the commentary box. So we can't say for sure, of course, but it looks like just say a little bit tight battling, but ultimately it was what happens when drivers go racing. Saying that, Coleman up into P2, swoops around Norby to take that second position. And just like that, they're on the tail of Danny Coe. That strategy to go on the hards and stick it out through the second safety car hasn't really paid out for them because those medium runners have come knocking very, very fast.
Noah Common wants his race lead back. Noah Common might just get his race lead back. Norby falls down to P3. Super Gaming finds himself up at a P4 too. Another fresh set of mediums on a car. He's managed to make it work spectacularly if he can make that pass on Norby. Noah Common peeks down the inside of the Red Bull, and the Red Bull will weave to the right-hand side of the track somehow to ensure maintaining that position, denying the McLaren, but barely for a second or so, because here comes Noah Common to retake the lead of this race, even before the chicane and the main straight.
I said, well, now Noel Coleman's in a pretty difficult position, though. Look at those recharge lights. He burned everything trying to get to this position, and now he's trying to see what he can do in terms of holding it with little to no resources.
Considering his position early into the Zandvoort race, I'd imagine he can, but a fumble would send him straight back to where he started early on. So right now, Noah Common seems like he's fine for now, as long as Danico can keep, losing time. But again, you're probably not going the right way on that. Regardless, Norby trying his best to close in on that Red Bull. Super Gaming, he's done a fantastic job so far on those mediums. So has Leo Lund, Noah Common's teammate. Down the inside, he peeks the Alfa Romeo, gets almost level pegging with the Ferrari up in front, but has to concede and hold on to P4 for now. Come the main straight, you'd imagine the Alfa Romeo making that pass on the Ferrari.
I think at this point, it's just about biding your time. A lot of these drivers are very quick to run and try and grab whatever positions they can, and that's fair enough. But sometimes you've got to play the long game. And all saying that, though, it's a big incident there. Super Gaming losing it coming out of the Wall of Champions, almost collecting Leo Lund and Jamie Mells. That is another one hitting the DNF. That is, I think, a pit retirement.
Another retirement. Oh, and a Haas into Sector 1 has gone onto the grass, lost an end plate as well in the form of, I assume, not Dazed Rhombus, but Joris has trumbled down to P16. And yeah, chaos at the back of the pack, but somehow no full course yellow. The race continues. Noah Common leads this race ahead of Danico, and a huge gap now, over a 2-second gap between the front runners.
Yeah, looking on board with Norby then, seeing what they can really do from this position. In terms of options, it's not looking like much. I think, though, that Norby is waiting for Danico to head into the pits. It's an inevitability at this point. They basically have to if they want to commit to that one-stop strategy. Now is really that transfer window, considering medium runners went so much earlier on.
Yeah, regardless, Norby makes the pass. It seemed like he was going to make the pass, but there he goes into the pits, Danico. So Norby will be up in a P2. Alexander Dimas up in a P3. What's happened to Leo Lund? He's gone into pits as well. That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, 2 Ferraris in the top 3, charging on a McLaren.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happened to Lund there. In fact, no, I believe that Leo Lund was collected slightly as part of the incident with Super Gaming. Had some repaired, some damage they needed to repair there. So they're coming out right with Danico, and they are going to be in a bit of a struggle to gain those positions back. I'm not sure if we're going to get another safety car. They can't necessarily rely on that as drivers, so it's going to be a tough battle.
We got our first set of soft running car out on track. Soon enough, Joris will hit the tracks with a fresh set of softs on lap number 13. Quite the long way to go to the race end, so I'd imagine he's got another pit stop lined up. But yeah, up ahead, that 2-second gap has trickled over 4 seconds almost now between Noah Common and Norby, who's got a gap of his own to Alexander Dimas, threatened for position by McBlurk, who sends it straight into the pits. Alexander Dimas, and McBlurk will climb up to P3.
Yeah, I think Say McBurk, so he's just keeping the pressure on a bit too much, if you ask me, purely because they would have known by that point that their opponent was heading into the pits, considering they were pretty much the only one left on the hard tyres. And I think it's the same reason that we didn't really see any moves thrown on the likes of Dimas earlier. Or at least it was another car. No, it was Danico, my mistake. That's why we didn't see a move thrown on Danico earlier in the race, because their attacker knew they were going into the pit. So rather than try and duke it out, they waited behind, got that extra DRS pull, and then as they went into the pits, they can sort of maximize that speed coming through.
Yeah, if anyone's maximizing anything, it's got to be Justin that racer. In the thickness of the battle, as an Alpine loses the rear out the hairpin, is a sitting duck to the Aston Martin right behind, and the Red Bull to follow just might. I'm pretty sure he's spamming the ERS, because right now, Aljat seems poised to take that position off of McBlurk down the inside. Willie Peak almost seemed like contact between the Aston Martin and Alpine as they go through the chicane. Positions are held, but that's a Ferrari who's gone into the pits, and Noah Common seems to have followed as well. So McBlurk takes the race lead for the first time in PSGL, and as I say that, it's an Aston Martin, almost seemingly, who went off track, is back on track, and is running P2 with Justin that racer in P3.
Just say this is where the big shakeups happen. So it's looking like the 2-stop strategy is coming out for a lot of these drivers. And say Coleman notably hopping in for another set of mediums with the 2-stopper. It's an interesting one to try and play. This is the sort of convergence point of a lot of strategies. 2-stoppers are going to be out on fresh mediums. 1-stoppers are going to be ailing a little bit, but are soon going to be coming out on fresh rubber too. That's really where we've seen 2 races play out, so to speak, where we've seen those who have maybe on 2-lap-old tyres versus 12-lap-old tyres. They're saying that someone's backwards on track. That's Kintex.
Yeah, around the hairpin, sends himself around, and he tumbles down the order. It's a DRS train between the top 7 drivers, top 5 drivers to be specific. McBlurk leading, of course, with Aljad running P2. But out of that, it seems like it's just Justin that racer with no penalties to his name. So clearly, he's the one with the advantage on lap number 22. If anything is going to unravel itself in terms of incidents to send the whole course yellow, if anyone's hoping for that to happen, it's Justin that racer in P3.
Justin Racer will be able to see in his UI that everyone around him has got penalties, so at this stage, it's worth him just playing safe. Maybe go for a move if one presents itself with a key advantage, maybe DRS or just an ERS push, but he doesn't have to overdo it. He can really play it much safer than anyone else can. Everyone else has got those penalties to their name, and they're going to have to be super aggressive to try and compensate while they can.
Yeah, and especially considering top 5 all on same set of tires. No Common, who had pitted along with Norby, I presume, has come out P9 and P11 respectively, down beyond the points, securing positions, and a bit of a tussle at the back of the pack. But on the top 5, despite a DRS train having been formed, not quite, action-packed as you'd think in comparison with Noah Carmen as well as Leo Lund if they were ever in the top 5. But right now, McBluck doing a fine job at holding on to the race lead ahead of Aljat and Justin that racer, as we talked about, carefully, patiently holding his own.
Yes, I think patience is the name of the game. Noel Carmen goes and sets the fastest lap, a 1:11.5 on the medium compound. Looking very, very strong from that McLaren. And soon they're going to be charging and making a run on the top pack, as he does just that right now. And saying that, though, looks like someone's out on track and in the wall of champions. That is another victim claimed. That is Jaski, that's the Alpine. That's the safety car. Another one has come out.
All eyes on the top 3, presumably, but we got a first victim for the Wall of Champions. It happens to be Leonard, who gets himself out already. Sappy, could you imagine 5 cars retired from this race, and we got about 12 laps still left. And McBluck leads this race ahead of Aljat and Justin that race. And Noah Carmen, who's led most of the laps here today at Montreal, finds himself running in P8 on a fresh set of mediums, having pitted just 2 laps ago. So what will unravel itself in terms of strategy up in front between the top 5, top 3 go straight into the pits. I assume Elias Lima follows suit, and so does Momenta. Fazekas, Days Drombas as well. So Noah Carmen retakes the lead of the race on lap number 23.
So it's going on to the Red Bulls for some drivers here. McBluck coming out on the softs, but everyone else, for the majority of the pit runners, are going on to mediums again. So that 2-stopper. Now, if I was, say, in Noel Carmen's position, I wouldn't be too mad. If it was about a 5 or 6 lap difference, totally different story, totally different ball game. But it's only 2 or 3 laps. They can conserve a lot of their tyre life through the safety car period. And really, I think they're going to be just fine.
Yeah, same goes perhaps to Alexander Dimas, who's on 4-lap old mediums, much closer of a pit stop with Noah Carmen as well. McBluck getting on the softs might have just sent his race completely upside down. I'd imagine seeing Joris on the softs for 4 laps, still struggling to even keep up with the pack, or even close that enormous gap he had developed. I'd imagine McBluck might have an advantage come the first 5 laps after the safety car restart, but thereafter, he's gonna start falling down the order. Norby staying out 3-lap old mediums, much similar to Noah Carmen's position. I'd imagine it's McLaren, Ferrari, come the race restart, or about 4 laps thereafter. Just in that race, Aljat, 2 drivers who've been in the top 3, close to McBluck in the last couple of laps, find themselves with fresh rubber and possibly can mount a challenge to those top 3 runners, those 2 Ferraris and a McLaren.
Well, so McBluck's on a good spot, on a good form to take the top position, but it's really about whether they can hold it is more the issue. They have got softs on, and softs are really good, but they are not 9-10 laps good. That is the key distinction to make. So they can get the position, but if they can hold the position by the time those softs have passed their prime and the mediums are still good to go, that I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I mean, it was a no-brainer to get on the mediums for McBluck. I just don't understand why he went on the softs. Hopefully he evaluates going into the next couple of races, but as it stands, he won't be fresh for the picking on the Ferrari front. They will take their time to get some heat into their tires, surely enough, at the race restart. He might get the jump on Noah Carmen, I'd imagine, at race restart, but will be quickly swapped around come lap number 5. But we got 10 laps of racing left, folks. We've had about 2 or 3 safety cars so far, and it is Noah Carmen, the driver who's led the most laps out in Montreal today, yet again in the race lead, and will be dictating the pace come the restart at the end of this safety car.
Well, as the moment, Harmon, I think, is just begging for that safety car to come back in ASAP, because every lap the safety car is out, that advantage of the mediums wanes and the softs get stronger and stronger. These safety car laps, they are putting pressure on the tyres, but it's nowhere near as much as full speed running. So they are getting a tiny bit of wear, and that can somewhat help the case, but it's not enough. So really, if this doesn't come in next lap, then Carmen's going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and his teammate finds himself down in P7. He might have had a fumble of his own, considering he was much closer to Noah Carmen in some sort of a I'll hold up the pack kind of position. But right now, it's not. It might not look good come the end of this lap, at least for the next 5 laps or so. For the McLaren up in front, you can see McBlock trying his best to ensure he's as close as he can get to Noah Carmen under this safety car. Race restart. Danico, someone who had led more than a lap in this race, finds himself down in P8. Momenta even was in the top 5, finds himself down in P10, not on fresh set of rubbers. But somehow 15 drivers are on track, 5 having retired. The race is still on, 9 laps left.
Well, so you've got still a lot of opportunity. And I think, say, Carmen right now is still going to be okay, because we've been approaching this from the perspective of everyone being equal. But really, it's not equal. McBlurk knows that, Aliet knows that, Leo Lund knows that, Lima knows that. They've all got the little black and white flags next to their name, so they've got to not only outrace their opponents, but outrace 3 seconds of time on their opponents. Here we go. Let's see if they can do just that. McBurk is eager and poking up the rear of the McLaren. Going to be going up to race pace any second now to get the speed through the Wall of Champions. I'm going to see when the takeoff is and how well they can do.
A cheeky trick by Noah Carmen last time around on the back straight itself early on. He ensured he goes back to race pace, and it seems like he's done it ahead of the chicane, because he knows fumbles will play into his favor as the pack ensures they go by the chicane clean, car by car. Right now, McBlock still half a second's gap to Noah Carmen. That race restart advantage didn't seem to have gone his way, but he's got a couple of laps in him in those soft tires perhaps. Noah Carmen leads this back, and no position swap so far after safety car restart, all within a second of each other from the top all the way to the back.
I think at this point, even if they do get past, Carmen can sort of rely on the DRS for keeping them within arm's length of the Alpine. But they just need to keep it those crucial few laps until that DRS is re-enabled by race control. That's the battle that they have on their hands. Leo Lund, also down in P7, is going to see if they can get some moves done on Justin the Racer. He can't quite get anything just yet, but he's still keeping them very close and keeping it up close and personal, at least for now. But saying that big lock-up into the hairpin, almost dives down the inside, just about recovers it, but still puts themselves in a very risky position. Lima almost takes advantage.
Yeah, I almost thought that was contact between the McLaren and the Red Bull, who is peeking down the inside. But if it's any driver who's capitalized on the race restart on the softs, is Kintex. He's made up 2 positions from that restart and is closing in on Yoris as we speak on a fresh set of softs. I'd imagine he makes the pass soon enough, but up ahead, everything remains unchanged from P1 all the way down to P12.
Kintex did go into the pits for another set of softs here, and really I think it's about damage control. They know at this stage this position doesn't pay them any points, so it's a final Hail Mary, if you will, on the softs to either steal the fastest lap or straight up just run back into the points paying positions as fast as they can. They've only got 7 laps to go, so they're running out of time.
Yeah, up ahead, it seems like the Ferraris are arguably playing the team game. Norby opening up that 1 second's gap, holding up the pack, arguably perhaps for Alexander Dimas, who gets incredibly close to the Alpine out the hairpin, but seems like he didn't have the pace to stay as close to that soft runner on the back straight. Noah Carmen is sitting mighty well in the race lead. as comfortable as you'd imagine Noel Carmen to be in a race leading position. He's unfazed by McBlock, regardless of him being on the softs. And I'd imagine Alexander Dimas has an incident. I believe that could have been the Wall of Champions no front wing for the Ferrari as he tumbles down and he is out of this race.
It's just too much on the throttle coming out the final corner, and that's all it took to lose the rear over the curb and pile into the inside wall facing the pits, lose that front wing, and at that point it was just a retirement. It's to say, nope, not having this, I have had enough. It's a yellow in Sector 1, but it's not enough for a full course safety car. The car can still move, the carbon can be cleaned up by the race marshals and the stewards. It's okay to continue running, just with some, say, careful looking around. The Ferrari really suffered from that in terms of constructors' drive.
Yeah, surely enough. It seems like they were setting up for what could be a spectacular result with Norby starting to hold up the pack, opening up that seconds gap to Alexander Dimas. But right now, as it seems, Norby is the lone Ferrari out on track and will have to pick up the pace, arguably, to get that P2. It seems like, considering McBlock has that penalty to his name, Norby could possibly get that P2 awarded to him, but he is threatened for position. He's got Al Judge just in that race and a flurry of drivers breathing down his gearbox all within a second of each other.
Leo Lund, another one, is keeping an eye on Justin. We've seen them run very close over the past few laps, and that might soon yet come to a head. Aliat is also seeing if they can get a move done on Norby, but that McLaren is going to be looking to see what they can do. Now, they're running out of resources and they're running out of time, but I think the dream is alive for some of these drivers to go for some last second moves if they can plot their coordinates correctly.
Now we got about 5 laps for any of the drivers to fulfill their dreams in Montreal. Right now, McBlock, I wonder, soft tires might just be falling off because that gap was half a second. Now it's going over 8/10 or so, and the McLaren almost in a sandwich of sorts. Al Jad tumbles down the yard, loses a position, more than a position, as the Red Bull takes him out around the outside. And it seems like Leo Lund couldn't capitalize on that chaos that unraveled around the hairpin. Not chaos as such, as all drivers remain in this race, get as close as he can onto the Wall of Champions, deploying as much ERS on the main straight, but Leo Lund will have to settle for P6 for now on lap number 31, and it's the Aston Martin that had faced the short end of the stick and find himself running in 5th.
I'll say, I think I couldn't see fully what's going on, but it looked like a little bit of contact, a little bit of tyre banging, and Justin eventually coming out of that in 4th. We didn't fully get to see what happened, but at one point it was 3 abreast between themselves, the Aston and the McLaren. The race has sort of resolved itself by this point. Leo Lund still down in P6 and Aliat down in P5. I'm not sure if they can make a challenge.
Yeah, if anyone can make a challenge, it is competitors in the midfield. However, if Justin that racer can make the pass on Norby as soon as possible, he can pick off McBlock. But around the hairpin, Aston Martin and Mercedes almost level pegging, but it's Aston Martin up in front. Mercedes has to concede momentum, and Fazekas fighting for P9. DRS, ERS in his favor. It's the Mercedes driver around the outside, ahead of the chicane. Will make the pass, and up in a P9 he goes.
It's just about making that pass as well. So tight to the line there before having to dip in and set their pace for the Champions Wall. And looking at the back, it's Super Gaming and Rhombus. They're both losing out. Rhombus, in fact, going sideways and heading into the pits amongst all the chaos. But yeah, to say another claim in the final sector.
Yeah, an incredibly aggressive move by Joris around the outside, almost pushing that Aston Martin off track on the inside, in fact. And he finds himself up in a P10. He is going at it with the Mercedes this time around, and it's cost him, and it might have just cost the Mercedes. No, it's not. Fazekas keeps on going. Joris got 2 elbows out in Sector 1 into Sector 2 and has retired from the session. That's a full course yellow and another retirement.
That is down to 13 drivers now. So 7 retirements / crashes. It's crazy how this race has gone down. We're only going to see 1 lap of safety car here. The game is hard coded to allow 2 laps of race running at the end. And The looks like Coleman is going to stay out. McBlurk has no choice to stay out as well. And this has suddenly gone to a much more interesting final shootout. But importantly as well, only 3 drivers in this whole stack don't have a time penalty.
And 2 of them are running as close as they can for the podium positions. I'm pretty sure Justin, that racer, if not Norby, has a smile on their face because we've got a sprint no one asked for, folks. The last 2 laps at Montreal.
Okay, so what has become a race of attrition has got a final sprint just to top it off. Icing on a cake, almost. But there you go. The bottom runners, say like Memento, Kintix, Fazekas, all hopping into the pits for the softs, for that sort of last dash. They know that track position is going to be recovered, and they can get absolutely everything out of those softs. If you're on a fresh red wall, this is your time to shine. Couldn't say the same for McBlurk right now. 9 laps to their name on the soft tyres. And as the safety car comes in this lap, as per prediction, Noel Coleman sets the pace.
Walker be running through Justin that racer's mind. All eyes on that Red Bull. He is the one in prime position to pick off McBlurk, possibly mount a challenge on Noah Carmen. He'd want to stay much closer to McBlurk, that Alpine, come the race restart, because he's got Norby hot on his tail. Despite that difference in tire life on those mediums, I'd imagine Norby putting up quite the fight up in front. They just need to keep it clean for 2 laps. These 3 who've kept it clean so far, Noah Carmen, Justin that race, and Norby, to ensure a brilliant result come the race finish. Noah Carmen swoops across the chicane to take that to continue to lead this race. McBlurk possibly a sitting duck to the Red Bull, but that Ferrari didn't get the start it had hoped for, and the Red Bull's breathing down the Alpine's gearbox already.
Looks like another fight further down as the Aston Martin trades places. Leo Lund also going for a bit of a run where the Aston Valiant seemingly had made a mistake there. And say that Red Bull is just closing in. Norby's also putting that pressure on. Memento and the soft runners are also going to make that last minute charge. But McBlurk, say 1.5 seconds behind Noel Coleman right now. 1.6, 1.7. It's that time is ticking away, but they're just say running out of grip.
Yeah, and McBlurk's strategy arguably plays into the favor of Noah Carmen because McBlurk's holding up the entire pack as Leo Lund tries his best to get level pegging with the Ferrari, and Justin that racer tries his best to close in on McBlurk in the back straight, but with no DRS, he's not going to have everything he needs to make that pass. He will have to wait for that opportunistic moment, but right now Leo Lund is getting impatient. He wants that position off of Norby as soon as possible.
See the penalties flooding in as people are getting impatient, cutting that final chicane with the World Champions. It's a little bit too much there. Trading up and down. Intix, Super Gaming, Fazekas, all having their struggles. Fazekas in particular dropping right down and really just sort of struggling to keep their head above water. It's a yellow sector 1 as that looks like Rhombus has had trouble with Lima, but Justin has finally made the move past McBlurk, and this is where the dominoes start to fall because the Ferrari is next to take a punt. Are they going to go for it? Peek down the inside, doesn't quite have it yet. They're going to keep and trying, seeing if they can go again. But that's going to be Leo Lund also throwing it around the outside, seeing what they can get. It's final time. And it looks like...
And Noah Carmen, on the backside as the chaos arguably unravels behind him. In fact, wheel-to-wheel cars going level pegging up in front with clear air. What a race he's driven. Noah Carmen, he comes alongside the Wall of Champions as he finishes the race and wins the race in Montreal at PSGL F5 Season 32 ahead of Justin that racer who manages to pick off McBlurk, owning that P2 rightfully on track. And that time penalty is going to cost McBlurk a podium around Montreal as Norby wraps it up.
So the likes of Kintix as well, I do want to say, they made a really good job of gaining the positions in that final charge on the softs. It was certainly really well done by them. But yes, Noel Carmen takes the cake. Strategy put in place, top tier to perfection. And then you can see Kintick's in fact getting the driver of the day from the game, but let us know in the chat who your driver of the day truly is.
McBlook could have gotten that, surely enough. I believe he started at the very back down in P20, and he found himself almost getting that podium. But all eyes on this man, Noah Carmen. Top step with the podium for him.
It's a very good performance from them there. So we're just waiting for the podium to come in now. And there we are. You can see sort of striding up to the top step. Going to be the McLaren driver, joined by a Red Bull and Mercedes in P2 and P3. It's a great job from all of them. See, holding the trophy high in Montreal.
That's the fastest lap too, so another championship point his way. It's going to clearly play in his favor come the driver's title fight itself. He's possibly leading it if my memory serves me right. But 13 positions made up for from Justin that racer. Impeccable, impressive from the Red Bull driver, and Norby managing to bring it home regardless of a fumble from his teammate Alexander Dimas. So a podium for him, his first podium this season. Same with Justin that racer, coming back on the top step of the podium.
What a redemption there from Zandvoort, though. So to go from a really low spot, say just getting 2 points last round, to now getting the win and the fastest lap to boot. Snow Carmen taking the win with Justin and Norby rounding off the podium. All I can say, all I can really say is just what a race. It's a great performance from everyone out there. It was insane to see. Insane to see the amount of variability we had in the racing conditions. We had to say overcast at one point to sunny to overcast again. We had multiple safety cars. We had 7 cars being knocked out of the running, either by pit retirements or accidents. I certainly couldn't have predicted any of this playing out.
Yeah, and neither could I. So I stand corrected on what I said right before the race. I'd expected a much more mellow race where it was almost on par with Zandvoort, arguably. But we had expected this back in Spain. We've got a series of races now. We wrapped up with Zandvoort, we wrapped up with Montreal, and the next couple of races are going to be just as much action-packed. But perhaps we can hear a word or two from our podium sitters of the day around Montreal.
Well, let's see if any of them are available. I guess just before we head into that, I do want to sort of clarify and state the fact that at this point, we've seen basically a complete inversion of the standings we saw from last round. Say Noel Carmen being very low in the standings gets the win at the fastest lap. You have Yuki, who has had a podium every race this season so far and basically got left holding nothing.
Yeah, that's why they say you're just as good as your last race in this business, and perhaps even in sim racing. Clearly, every race counts for so much more. Kintex finally managed to show his actual footing, you could say. Getting driver of the day, making up quite a bit of positions in the race. If he can keep that up, finish in the top 5 would be spectacular for him. Think about the Ferraris, Alexander Dimas having that retirement. What could have been for the team a collective podium result? But Justin that racer was the one to pick up after him. And Norby was still there, managed to finish in the top 3. McBlock, having started P20, that 3-second time penalty cost him a podium.
Yeah, and
still, the best is still yet to be seen, I feel.
Yeah, and it is unfortunate to say some people lost out big time, not always through fault of their own. We did see occasionally on some accidents people getting collected, but unfortunately sometimes that's racing, unfortunately. That's just the way it goes sometimes. But I think it's only fair that we talk to our winner of race 4. Going to be none other than Noel Carmen. I mean, first off, congratulations on your performance today. Brilliantly done, brilliantly driven. Can you just sort of talk us through in your mind how that race went with all the unpredictability? How did you keep up with it?
I don't think I did. But yeah, I mean, it did feel good. The first safety car was like, okay, it's way too early to go to mediums. But the second one was like, okay, if I pit, I'm just gonna hope the other people in the rear pit. So yeah, other people did that, so then I was so much faster than the other guys, so that helped me a lot. Then I just tried to send it so I can get the most out of my tires. Then unfortunately I pitted a little too early. Then another safety came out. I don't plan the race through safety cars, obviously. But yeah, I mean, it still worked out. I think McLurk had good pace, but the softs are way too bad. It's my motto: never go on softs on this game.
Yeah, a motto of a lot of sim drivers who play this game. But surely enough, at some point, did you think, oh no, I've really messed it up and possibly cost me the entire race itself?
No, I never felt it like that, because I mean, I don't want to be that guy, but I felt really fast. So I was just, okay, well, even if it came out the safety car, I will be so much faster than the other. But yeah, I mean, it's just felt the right thing to do, and no, I never felt really that scared. I felt really fast.
And sometimes it is just a case of that. It is really just a case of like you feel the flow, you feel the speed, and you just sort of ride it out. Now tell me, I know this kind of hard to predict, but if the safety cars hadn't come out, let's say if it was a completely smooth race, because of course we saw 3 safety cars, 7 DNFs. If they hadn't have come out though, if it had been a normal smooth sailing race, how do you think you would have fared? Do you think you're still a 1, or maybe things might have gone differently?
I think that question can answer itself from the first few laps when I had a 4-second gap. I think that's just enough, doesn't it? I mean, I think I would what I wanted. I would have won it by more than I did today, I think.
I think that's fair. I think that's confidence. I like it, and certainly you say got receipts to prove it. If that's that 4-second gap, it's a fair yardstick to judge it by. So, with that being said, is that some momentum we can expect being taken into, of course, Monaco next round? Say love. It's a bit of a Marmite track, but do you think you can carry that same podium material into Monaco?
Well, I think podium for sure. When? Well, I'm hoping Monaco. I don't know how much I'm gonna practice through that. I don't think a lot of people are. I mean, if they are and they like the track, good for you. But yeah, I mean, obviously I'm looking to win, but I would be happy with the podium. Yeah, I mean, it's just gonna be who doesn't get damage, I think.
One of attrition.
Yeah, but arguably considering Zandvoort the way it went, and now Montreal, it's it happens that it seems like every race now, it's a matter of who doesn't get damage, who doesn't get time penalty. That was a crucial factor in today's podium as well. Yeah. What about your teammate Leo Lund? His performance today, and how much it might, fall short of in the constructors' battle?
Well, I think that was unfortunate today. We had he was lagging a bit for him, so it was unlucky, and I think he couldn't practice too much due to him having to focus on his internet. When he last race we did together, he was desynced for almost half the grid, so he's just been focusing on the internet to not get desynced in PSGL. So not a lot of practice, and I think that just comes into play for him. But yeah, I don't think it's mattered as much in the constructors due to AlphaTauri both DNFing, and I'm getting 17 points, so we're gaining 17 on them. If I'm correct, I don't think anyone took my first lap. I don't think it matters. I think he needs to leave this race behind him and just focus on the Monaco.
Well said. Words of a good team. I think that's if you had a bit of a hiccup this race, you pick yourself up, you move on. Well, great talking to you as always. Hopefully we get to have another chat in Monaco. I'm loving the confidence regarding the podium. Looking forward to see what you bring to the table. Thank you.
Okay, can I add one more thing?
Yes.
Okay, so fact.
Yeah.
Ratio.
Okay.
Well, said it himself. Right now, on that beautiful note, we'll be talking to the other driver who sort of won big out of today. Let's talk to Justin. I mean, how do you feel about your race today, mate?
pretty good considering what happened last week. Redemption, and it was a pretty fun race.
And you can just sort of talk us through what your race was like. I mean, to be honest, you were kind of caught in the middle of a lot of the chaos out on track today.
Yeah, I mean, qualifying was never really my strong point, given the fact that I think every race I've qualified outside the top 15 almost. So I've always had to fight my way back. But today, especially lap 2, I think I went from P13 to P6 or something with all the chaos. And then all the safety cars, all the different strategies, all the trying not to die on cold tires made it a very exciting end to the race.
Yeah, it seems like every race we see you have that bit of momentum and that charge through the midfield, and this time around it actually translated into a proper race result, getting that podium. Do you think the best is yet to come on your front?
I hope so. I mean, given last week I was in a position to win the race, and this week I felt like had that second safety car not have come out, I maybe could have won the race. I feel like it's just a matter of time, and it'll take one good track and one good qualifying session, hopefully, to make that happen.
There you go. Well, even amidst all of the chaos out on track, you, in a way, it's just about keeping your head down, sort of navigating your way through it. And what we really sort of see coming to pass today is just making the best out of the situation. Now tell me, and I asked the same for this to Carmen, if this was completely smooth sailing, where do you think you would have ended up? Maybe higher, lower? What's your feel on that?
I feel like definitely lower. I feel like maybe 5th or 4th could have been best, considering at the end of lap 2 I was 6th because of all the crashes, and maybe with the penalties could have brought me up, but I would have said like top 4 max. So I think all the safety cars helped me today, definitely.
Well, yeah, safety cars, always winners and losers, and so I came out on top of it today. So, start taking questions?
Nope, that's pretty much it. Hoping to see those charges translated into more podiums, of course, as you'd hope. We did see it on Noah Carmen's front. Maybe Justin Racer can do the same, just like Noel did.
I hope so.
Yeah, we'll say. Thank you, mate, and looking forward. And in fact, are you looking forward to Monaco? Marmite track. Love it or hate it?
I mean, in the race, I'm usually pretty good, but I mean, Monaco's really all about qualifying. And judging my qualifying record, well, I'm kind of in a bit of a pickle here, but you know, we'll try. We'll see what happens, and try not get damaged.
Oh, I only have to wait and see for that one. I'm looking forward to it. But thank you, mate. Looking forward to seeing how you do out on track next time.
Thank you.
And there we go. So yes, that is going to be it from us today. So reminder, if you haven't already clocked, next race takes us to Monaco. It's a beautiful streets, duel of the F1 calendar, and a bit of a wild card as far as the racing goes. You've heard the opinions from a couple of the drivers themselves. Let us know your opinions about Monaco, and definitely be sure to check out our supporters and our sponsors. PSGL is proud to be partnered with GT Omega, and use code PSGL at checkout for a healthy discount. But before we wrap up, any sort of passing words before we say goodbye and we come back next week in the beautiful Monegasque streets?
Now, I'm excited for the race around the Principality, and perhaps this is only just the beginning for all the drivers in F5, at least for a bunch of them, considering if Sven makes his return, maybe Justin that racer, just start going with his momentum IRL in terms of skill. Maybe we'll see a bunch of left field results next time out. I'm excited. Hopefully everybody keeps on coming for the races just as much as we are. Happy.
And with that being said, you can catch us next time out. It's going to be great. It's going to be top tier. It's going to be PSGL, PCF5. Keep it here. We will see you next time out for round 5 in Monaco.
Cheers, folks.
This broadcast was brought to you by GT Omega, proudly supporting PSGL.